right, everyone. Thank you for coming to Neighborhood Watch. Officer Hill, I'll be going through and doing the presentation tonight. With everything going on with the new webcasting that we're doing, we're going to be doing kind of a back to basics kind of thing. So we're going to talk about stuff that some of you have already heard before. Hopefully some of you guys who are listening on the webcast, this will be new information for you and get you a little more interested to come in on the nights that we do the actual meeting. It's the third Monday of every month at the Chamber of Commerce here in Monte Vista, 6 o'clock. So things that we're going to be going through and talking about next month. Next month, I know this is going to be a little hard to see, but there's going to be a doctor whose name I'm not going to butcher, but he's a local physician here in the San Luis Valley. He's going to be working with Carrie Deacon, the head of the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. And they're going to be talking about their harm reduction programs and their medical assisted programs to help get people off of opioids and what that looks like. So, like I said, today we're going to be kind of doing more of a fundamental. We're going to be doing more of a fundamental on Neighborhood Watch. And we all know that it's here and that it's been working. Okay, these are little flyers. We have handouts that at the back of the room. And basically, this is just information on your neighborhood. This is how we go through and get information about you and if you're interested in joining Neighborhood Watch. So the benefits of a community watch are mainly in procedural justice, okay? So it gives the community a voice, okay? We're listening to you. See something, say something is a huge part of Neighborhood Watch. Without the community going through and helping going through and do this, it would be far more difficult for us to go through and do our jobs. With the community going through and helping, I'll show you a little later here how the numbers for crime have eventually gone down over the years. Neutrality, making sure that until you absolutely know something, you make sure that you're neutral about it. They might be doing something, they might not be doing something, and you trust that law enforcement is going through and doing their job and making sure that the right people are caught. If someone isn't doing something, that we're still looking into it and making sure that they're not actually doing anything. Trust. This is going to be something that's to a point. We need to be able to trust our community, but at the same time, we need to understand that there's bad people out there. And respect, regardless of whether or not they're good or bad, we need to understand that we need to respect everybody. Okay, a lot of these people are just people who have made bad choices in their lives. There are some really bad people out there, but for the most part, someone who's made a bad choice, which has led to a series of bad choices, and in getting the help they need, they can go through and be productive members of society again. But all through that process, we need to remember to respect one another through it. So, why do we have Neighborhood Watch? It's basically just a community-sized homeland security. It's everybody watching out for each other. Some of the things that are up here as far as the benefits: crime reduction, improving the quality of life, a greater sense of security, responsibility, and personal control, building community pride and unity, preparing to help others and ourselves as a community, providing law enforcement agencies with volunteer support year-round, and becoming extra eyes and ears for law enforcement personnel, and therefore helping reduce law enforcement's burden. Right now, you can hear across the country how law enforcement recruitment is at an all-time low. A lot of law enforcement agencies across the country are operating at significant deficits. Even here in Monte, we're still looking for 2 officers. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have only 14 or 15 officers, 2 makes a huge difference. So these are definitely benefits. When the community works with law enforcement and we're at a deficit in our staffing, you guys being the eyes and ears of law enforcement helps us to go through and be able to do our jobs more fluidly and help you as a community and be able to engage in community actions and proactive policing. So at Neighborhood Watch, there's these 5 things right here. The recruiting and organization of neighborhoods is possible. We're going to talk about that a little bit more with our districts. It's not a strict set, especially with something as small as Monte Vista, but it's still something that we look at. Contacting your local law enforcement agencies for scheduled meetings. As I discussed, there's the Neighborhood Watch meeting every 3rd Monday, 6 o'clock here at Chamber of Commerce. There's other things that play into this, such as Coffee with a Cop and National Night Out. Discussing community concerns and developing an action plan. Well, I'd like to think that we in Monte Vista do that all the time. We have the Chamber of Commerce, we have City Council, we have Coffee with a Cop, we have Neighborhood Watch. And I know that there's other little groups that meet together to go through and try to bolster the community as a whole, to try to figure out how people can go through and do things better. Holding regular meetings, which we've discussed, implementing a phone tree for taking action steps. With Neighborhood Watch being the size that it is, we do have sign-up sheets, and we encourage everyone to go through and get together and get to know each other so that we can go through and continue to develop as a community as a whole. Get to know each other, get to know your neighbors. So the 6 P's of community policing are prevention, problem solving, proactivity, permanence, personalized professional partnerships. Okay, each of these play into how law enforcement interacts with the community. And I'll talk a little bit more about how these 6 P's play into policing in a later slide here. So this is a district map of Monte Vista. At the back of the room, there's handouts with maps of the districts. And it's broken down into District 1. This is going to be kind of your area around Cole Park. This is going to be your south side, the Lariat and Sunnyside areas. This is going to be more of your business districts right here, 2 and 3. And then District 4 is everything on the east side of town. We try to go through and have somebody in each of those districts go through and keep an eye out for different things. Neighborhood watch captains for those districts. It's something that we try to, but as I said, with how small Monte Vista is, it's not one of those necessities. It's just something that we're striving towards. These are the, can't see that very well at all. Can we turn these lights off here? These are, once again, the chief has been going through and showing how the numbers have worked over the years. There's been, if you look at everything, there's been this little increase right here, which I believe is certain types of, this is thefts. These are crashes, which are on their way down. This is burglaries, which has dropped significantly. Okay, the importance of the focus on numbers for reported crimes is going through and showing exactly how law enforcement has been effective in areas. Okay, so if you see how significantly burglaries have dropped at such a steep curve, when you look at the numbers for property crimes itself, the number of reports has stayed about the same. But specifically in burglaries, with it going down, we've noticed that number has shifted from burglaries to petty theft, to shoplifting, to very small things instead of the big things like people's homes getting invaded. We very much consider this a success since people in their homes are not being victimized on a regular basis as they were in the past. So this is a very important slide. This is the model that Chief Rosecrans, Chief of Police here in Monte Vista, has gone through and worked very closely as far as going through for our principles and how we work as an agency. These are the 9 Peelian principles developed by Sir Robert Peel, the founder of modern policing. Okay? And I'm going to talk about these in a fair amount of detail as I can. So the first one is the police's basic mission is to prevent crime and disorder. We all know what crime is. We know that crime is people assaulting each other, the burglaries, the shoplifting, the things we can all very easily identify as crime. But what is disorder? Okay? Disorder is not just riots, and thankfully in Monte Vista we're not exactly known for those, but it's also the person who's going through a mental health crisis. It's the person who's drunk, isn't committing any crime, but just being unruly, disorderly. These two things, we've noticed a small pickup over time, which is why the chief has been talking about how there's a new problem, a mental health problem that's going on. And this is not just in Monte Vista, this is going on nationally. So we as the police are responding to all kinds of things. We'll go through and respond to this guy just assaulted this other guy because he didn't like the color shirt he was wearing, to someone who is crying her eyes out, wondering if she ever wants to live again. And we as a police force have received training in both of these areas. Everyone knows about the training on the criminal side, but we've also received training on the mental health side, how to talk to people, how to de-escalate situations, and how to get people the help that they need, whether it's through hospitalization or through some people just need to go to detox and sleep it off, or going through and getting them connected with a mental health clinician to help them assess their mental health needs and hopefully get them set up with some kind of counseling help through the local behavioral health. So it's not just going through in the rustle and tussle of general crime and the what a lot of adrenaline junkies think about when it comes to police work, but it can also be something as simple as giving somebody a hug, showing respect, and not being judgmental. The second one is the ability to perform the duties depending on public approval. If the public doesn't approve of the police, they're not going to cooperate with us. They're going to fight us every step of the way. They're not going to go through and help us with statements. They're not going to call us for help. They're going to just be completely resistant to us. So going back to those principles of respect, we go through and build a relationship with the community, and we do that a lot with community policing. Going out into the community and talking to people, going out to our community events, going through and walking the schools and saying hi to the kids. Just going through and showing that we're not just there to arrest people. We're there to completely help them. And going through and showing that in a community is a very important part of our work. Because if we're just out there and only showing up for arresting the bad guy, well, not everybody sees themselves as a bad guy. A lot of people, as I've said, have just made a bad choice. And they, as a community, we as a community, would hope to not be judged on that for the rest of our lives. And that is very important, once again, with law enforcement. The third principle is the police need to be willing to cooperate with, police need to be willing cooperation of the public in obeying laws. Everybody's heard about a dirty cop. Everybody's heard about how well, they went through and did this, and this got somebody in trouble. Well, that's just bad. But this goes a little bit beyond that. This goes through and goes all the way down to basic traffic. If we're going to go through and contact someone for not stopping at a stop sign, we better be stopping at those stop signs. It shows that we have just as much respect for the law as the people that we're contacting. And this goes a long ways in developing that community trust. Principle number 4, the willing cooperation of the public diminishes proportionately to the police's need to use physical force. This goes to that respect thing again. All of these principles you'll see has some kind of respect, some kind of community partnership involved in it. So if the public opinion is the police are just there to beat you up, whether you did something wrong or not, well then everybody's going to think, oh, the police are here. I didn't do anything, but I'm not looking forward to beating. So I've actually experienced this in the job where people who have a history of running, of fighting the police, have gone through and said, no, the Monte PD isn't what it used to be. You want me to stop, put my hands behind my back, I'll do that. With people who have a history of fighting with the police again and again and again. And it's because of that understanding that we are not there to just beat you, because that's never what policing was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the prevention of crime and disorder, as the very first principle shows. So when the people in the community trust the police, including, to a degree, the people who have a history of run-ins with the police, they'll be more cooperative and the need for force goes down. This is especially important with all of the media attention that we're getting today, with another officer assaulted another guy, another officer shot this guy. We as the police will go through and do what it takes to affect our job and to go home at the end of the day. But our goal is to do it with no blood being shed whatsoever. Principle number 5. Police earn public respect not by catering to the public or political opinion or self-interest, but by demonstrating absolute impartial service to the law. Very basically, this is the law. We will show you the law. We know what the law is, and we're going to enforce that law. This also goes back to officers cooperating and obeying laws. So this goes to back when weed was not legal in the state of Colorado. I'm arresting you for weed. I do not smoke weed. Simple enough principle. Going through and showing a lack of favoritism. This is particularly important in our job. I'm not from around here, but I did go to school here. I went to Adams State. And I can speak from personal experience that I have dealt with people in custody that I went to college with, that I was drinking buddies with, that I went through and partied with. And I went through and they're like, oh no, we're cool. You're going to let me get away with this. No, I'm not. You're going to go through. This is the law. You broke the law. You are going to face the consequences of your actions. Funny enough, I never had trouble with those people. And I've seen situations where other officers wouldn't arrest family. Well, how does that look? Looks good on the family, I suppose, but it doesn't look good for law enforcement as a whole. So this is where it becomes very interesting, because some people go through and say, well, why would you give your mother a ticket? Some would say, well, I wouldn't give my mother a ticket. others say they would. There's the family dynamic, but for the ones that would give their mother a ticket, they're trying to show that impartial stance that they have with the law. Principle number 6. The police should use physical force to secure observance of the law or to restore order only when the exercise of persuasion, advice, and warning is insufficient. This is kind of a double for back what we were talking about with the police need to use physical force. There is a point in our job where it will become necessary, inevitably, in the past, in the future, and for so long as law enforcement continues to exist. There's always going to be the drunk guy who refuses to follow orders. After going through and being asked, please stop. Just go cool off. No, you need to stop or something's going to happen. Eventually, there's always going to be that guy that you're going to have to take into custody, and inevitably, force is going to be used. I can tell you, we're trained to minimize use of force, but we're also trained to not hesitate to use it when necessary. So, principle number 7. The police should maintain a relationship with the public that gives the reality to the historic tradition that the police are the public and the public are the police. The police are members of the public who are paid for duties which every citizen would do in the interest of community welfare. This is underlined because this is, number 7, is the very aspect of community policing. This is the very principle that Neighborhood Watch is founded on. Everybody should be interested in the welfare of their community, and those who are here going through and watching, whether you're on the webcast or here in the meeting, should be interested in the continued welfare of the community, should be interested in going through, seeing something happen to their neighbor, and even though you're not paid as the police, going through and saying that's not right. Absent the police, go through and say, no, you can't do that, and try to begin that aspect of justice, the procedural justice, the arrest, the courts, etc. Everybody should, to a point, be willing to do that. We're here. We're paid to be here. So you can call us and we can address it. But the idea of Neighborhood Watch is if the police were not there, we would still be a sound community because we will still police ourselves. That is the very principle that Neighborhood Watch is founded on. Principle number 8. The police should always work to prevent crime and disorder, never take the powers of the judiciary. Street justice. Everybody's heard about the guy that threw in the couple extra jabs. Well, that goes back to we're not trusted. We're not minimizing that use of force. When we go through and prevent crime and disorder, when we minimize that use of force, when we act as trusted members of the community to go through and do all of that, when we go through and just take the people to jail to face the judicial system the way that we're supposed to, that goes back to that trust, that goes back to that respect, that goes back to that community principle that we should all be striving towards, both in law enforcement and as a neighborhood, as a community, as a whole. The last one is that the test of the police, the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder. If the cops are doing their job, crime's going to go down. If the cops aren't doing their job, crime's going to go up. And the reason why this is number 9 is because in order for number 9, the test of police efficiency, to be met, you have to meet the conditions of 1 through 8. So if you're not meeting 1 through 8, when it comes to number 9, the test of police efficiency, crime's going to be going up. People are going to be getting victimized. Disorder is going to be going on in the street. And the more we focus on going through and meeting those first 8, the more number 9 will be. So, We're going to go through, and now we're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty of crime and reporting and how you as a citizen can go through and help the police. Okay, you see something, say something. It's in full effect. Chief Rosecrans has been huge on going through and pushing that. See something, say something. You can go through and, for any emergency, of course, call 911. We can get somebody immediately dispatched. Okay, for a cold problem or something that's not an absolute emergency, you can call 719-852-5111. That's the local non-emergent dispatch number. Okay, and when you go through and call them, they're going to go through and ask for your name, your location and telephone number where you can be contacted, the name of the problem you're reporting, and any additional information that needs to be communicated to the officer. If you're a witness to a crime, they're going to want as much information as far as descriptors as you can give for that person that committed the crime. Age, race, height, weight, hair color, whether or not their hairstyle, whether they have a beard or a mustache, notable characteristics. For example, if someone has tattoos all over their face, that's a pretty distinct feature that would make it easier for law enforcement to develop. There's one guy, I have to absolutely laugh every time because he has a very distinct tattoo on his face, which is a number, 1 on each cheek. We get a call, yeah, he has a tattoo of this number and this number on his cheeks. Wow, that's a pretty distinct characteristic that we have a pretty good idea on who we're looking for there. Clothing description. Blue jeans and shorts, very different things. T-shirt, white T-shirt, or black jacket, 2 very different things. It's hard to change clothing. It can be done, but most people only put on 1 set of clothes for the day. So we'll be looking for that clothing description. Where they were seen last, that gives us a starting point. Last known direction of travel gives us an idea on where we need to be focusing our efforts. And vehicle descriptions, distinct markings. Let's talk about vehicles for a second. A lot of vehicles are as distinct as people. Have you noticed when you go through and you're in a parking lot, granted you generally have a good idea on what your car looks like and where you parked, but a lot of the surroundings have changed and you still know, well, that's my car. Say you're a lane off and you can just go through, if you're tall enough to see over the cars like I am, I can go through and say, oh, I parked over there. Because in general, you have a very distinct car. Your car might have distinct damage, like a dent on the bumper from someone going through and backing up into a tree, or damage along the side of the vehicle from someone going through and bringing the grocery cart too close to your car, different types of weather damage. In any case, your car is very distinct. Going through and giving as much description and information, including license plate information if you can get that safely, goes a long ways in helping us get what we need to go through and find the vehicle, the person, whoever. Now we go through and talk about how if you see something, but what about if something happens to you? I can tell you as a department, with the stuff that we deal with, we tend to be very compassionate. And there's a number of trainings and information that we receive a lot of training, and there's information that we can pass on to you to help ease those situations. There's a victims advocacy program for crimes against persons. This isn't burglary. This is someone beats you up, someone tries to kidnap you, something like that. But there are a number of victims resources that we have in the department and in the county to be able to help with these things. And now for a brief message from our sponsors. So protecting your property, protecting yourself, these are things that have helped reduce crime. When you take steps to protect yourself, you become a harder target. Most criminals will focus on what is called a soft target. And what a soft target is, it's easy, it's soft. There's no resistance, the path of least resistance. You go through and say someone wants to go through and grab the wallet, or grab a wallet. I'm in full uniform. I carry a wallet with me. I also have my taser. I have my handcuffs. I have my baton. I have my gun. Everyone knows that we're trained to go through and defend ourselves. What's an easier target? Law enforcement officer with all of those tools? Or little Billy with his lunch money? Well, if anyone's going to try to do a snatch and grab, little Billy's up for grabs. He's a soft target. What makes you a hard target is doing things to protect yourself. Okay? Almost all cars have security systems. Lock your cars. When you go through and someone's trying to break into a car, get an easy score off of a car, they're going to go through, just walk by, try to pop the door. If it's locked, the chances of them getting anything out of that car are significantly decreased. Almost every car has a break-in alarm anymore. Just the sound of the glass breaking is going to go through and be a major indicator. Say they have a lockout kit where they're going to go through and try to fidget with it. Well, someone walks outside and sees someone trying to go through and break into a car, and the police aren't there, what's going to be your first thought? He's trying to break into the car. Call the police. So, making sure your car is locked. Probably the first most important one. Second one, keep all of your valuables hidden and secured. We have glove boxes. We have center consoles. Almost all cars have these. If you go through and have $300 bills just sitting in your cup holder and someone's walking by, does it make it a more tempting target? Are they more likely to go through and take the chance and herd because they can just snatch it because they can see it really easily because they know where it is and go? Well, someone's walking by a car, they don't see anything other than a car. They don't see anything out in the open. There's no easy targets. If they get into that car, they have to look for anything of value. That takes time. Taking time means there's higher chances of them getting caught. Hide your stuff, lock your car door. There's other things that'll be available on the slide if you're looking online at the webcast, which I encourage everyone to do, to go through and see the other options on going through and taking steps to prevent theft from vehicles. When it comes to a bicycle, lock it up. Get a nice, hefty chain, something metal that you can go through and lock up. Get something with a key. When you have the combinations where you can just flick to the combination real fast and it comes off, granted, there's probably 10,000 combinations, but how diligent are you about going through and making sure it's fairly random in the selection of your numbers? Or someone might know you. A lot of crime happens with people who know one another. What's the most common passcode, key code, whatever? It's your date of birth. Most people's PIN, it's either your date of birth, your wife's date of birth, your mother's date of birth, your son's date of birth. Most common ones. Okay? Oh, he was born in 1971, right? Let's try it, 1971. Oh, hey, look, there it is. So go through and have something that's not your date of birth. Once again, there's going to be this list online on the webcast. Feel free to take a look at it. There's going to be some other tips on there. We're not going to go through it right now. When it comes to your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, kids. Kids this big, to kids this big, kids as big as you. Teach them safety. Teach them safety often. Okay? There's a whole list right here of things that you can go through and teach your kids. Stranger danger. Everybody's heard stranger danger. I've seen a lot less stranger danger going around, and I've seen a lot more kids being abducted with their pictures on Facebook. This is sad. This is terrifying. On last month's presentation, we found out that most kids that are abducted are killed. Go through and teach your kids safety in the community when they're walking, when they're in the grocery store, when they're crossing the street, when they're crossing the parking lot. Teach them often so that we don't have to worry about taking these calls, and so you don't have to worry about your kids being a victim of something in this world today. Safety tips for when you're going on vacation. Make it look like you're home. Have your neighbors check up. Have a point of contact. Even contact the police and let us know that you're going to be out of town and for how long. Set your alarm. Don't forget to lock your doggy door. Talk to your neighbors and remember that there's going to be things that are going to be telltale signs that you're not home. The newspaper. Who gets the newspaper still? Plenty. Remember to hold newspaper service. Remember to go to the post office and have your service held, because when things pile up, it's a telltale sign that someone's not there to pick them up. Think about leaving your lights on and watch what you post or tweet. Everybody talks about social media. Oh, hey, look at me. I'm on the beach of Cancun. Check out the scenery. Check this out. Check that out. Yeah, very cool. You saw all that. And anyone who's watching you on Facebook because they've already pegged your house as a target, when you're going through and taking selfie, they know that you're not there to watch your house. There's a number of steps for safety. It goes on and on and on. There are so many things that you can do to protect yourself. It gets very tiresome. And in some cases, it's very easy to get paranoid. We don't want you to do that. But we do want a healthy awareness of the world that we live in today. We want you to have a healthy set of safety rules that you can go by. And when you go through and follow these tips, it makes our job easier, it makes your life safer, and as a community as a whole, it just helps with that individual security and community security. Because if you're not hearing about how your neighbor went through and was just burglarized, you can feel a little safer. So things to take away from today for sure are to protect yourself, to protect your kids. Law enforcement is always going to be striving to be trusted in the community and follow those 9 Peelian principles. And the more we work together as a community, the safer the community is going to be. Thank you, everybody, for coming and watching, and we'll see you all next month.